The sound of rain pattered against the windows, the wind howling like an uninvited guest. Emily sat curled up in her favorite armchair by the fire, her fingers tracing the edge of the old book she had found in the attic just days ago. The story inside had fascinated her, but it was the note tucked in the back that had unsettled her. A cryptic message from someone who seemed to know more about her life than she cared to admit: "You can't outrun the past, Emily. It will find you when you least expect it." Underscore. Her heart raced, the words sending a chill down her spine. She had moved here to escape. To start fresh. But it seemed like the past was not ready to let her go. It had been 3 months since Emily moved to the small coastal town of Brookstone. She had chosen the place for its peace and quiet, hoping the ocean breeze and secluded beach would help her leave behind the trauma of her past life. Here, she had hoped, she could start anew. But something was amiss. The locals were friendly but distant, as if they all knew something about her. The way they looked at her with that knowing glint in their eyes made her uneasy. Especially when she caught sight of a man standing outside her window one stormy night, his figure partially hidden in the darkness. He stood still, staring at her house for what seemed like hours, before vanishing into the night. She tried to ignore the incident, but the feeling of being watched never left her. One evening, Emily decided to visit the local bookstore, hoping to find a new book to distract her mind. As she walked past the shelves, she was drawn to a book on the far end of the store. Its leather cover was worn, the pages yellowed with age. She picked it up, feeling an odd pull towards it. The title read, "Whispers in the Dark." She hesitated for a moment, then decided to take it to the counter. The woman behind the counter, a thin woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, gave her an appraising look as Emily placed the book down. "You should be careful with that one," the woman said, her voice low. Emily frowned. "Why?" The woman hesitated, glancing around as though making sure no one else was listening. "It's not just a story. Some say it's more than that." "Be careful, dear." Emily chuckled, trying to brush off the woman's warning. "Just a book," she muttered, paying for it before quickly leaving. That night, after the storm had passed, Emily sat in bed with the book open, reading the first few pages. It seemed like an ordinary mystery novel, but there was something haunting about it. The protagonist, much like Emily, had recently moved to a small town to escape her past. And much like Emily, she had felt the presence of someone watching her. As Emily read, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was no coincidence. The protagonist's life was eerily similar to hers, and the further she read, the more unsettling the story became. But it wasn't just the story that bothered her. It was the fact that the main character in the book started receiving mysterious notes that had started to sound very familiar to Emily's own life. The next morning, Emily received an envelope in the mail. It was addressed to her, but there was no return address. She opened it with trembling hands, pulling out a single sheet of paper. The handwriting was scrawled in a hurried, almost frantic manner: "I see you, Emily. You're not as safe as you think. Underscore." Her breath caught in her throat. It was the second note she had received in a week, and it was written in the same hand as the one in the book. There was no way someone could know about the book. Right, panic surged in her chest. Was someone watching her? Was someone from her past in this town, lurking in the shadows? "Can I help you?" Emily asked, trying to steady her voice. "I'm Alex," he said, his voice gravelly but soft. "I think you need to talk to me." Emily blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "I know what's going on," he said quietly. "I know who's been sending you those notes." Emily's heart skipped a beat. "Who are you?" Took a step closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "I'm someone who's been following the same path you've been on. And I know who's behind this. You need to trust me." The following day, her instincts told her not to trust him, but something in his eyes made her want to listen. He wasn't like the other strangers in town. There was an intensity to him, a fire that Emily couldn't ignore. "You don't know me, Emily," Alex began, stirring his coffee slowly, "but I know you. You've been running from something, haven't you?" Emily hesitated but nodded. Her past was a painful subject, something she had buried deep within herself. She wasn't sure how this stranger could know about it, but the eerie familiarity of his words made her want to listen. "I think you've figured it out already," Alex continued, his voice low. "The person watching you, sending you the notes. It's not a coincidence. They know exactly who you are. And they know where you are." Her pulse quickened. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've been tracking the person who's been leaving the notes," Alex replied, his gaze intense. "They've been following me for years. They won't stop until they get what they want." "What do they want?" Emily asked, her voice barely a whisper. "The truth. Your truth." That night, as Emily lay in bed, her thoughts spiraled out of control. She couldn't sleep, the weight of the mystery crushing her chest. The more she thought about Alex's words, the more she realized something: he wasn't lying. She could feel it in her gut. Her past was coming for her. And the only way to stop it was to face it head on. The next morning, she met Alex by the cliffs near the beach, where he promised to help her uncover the truth. As they walked along the rocky path, Alex spoke of a man who had been obsessed with Emily's past, a man who had ties to her family and had been following her every move since she left. "Who is he?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. Alex stopped and turned to her, his eyes full of pain. "He is someone from your past, Emily. Someone who isn't ready to let you go." Suddenly, there was a rustling from the bushes, and before Emily could react, Alex grabbed her arm, pulling her into the shadows. They watched as a man emerged from the trees. His face was hidden in the darkness, but Emily could feel his eyes on her, cold and calculating. "Run," Alex whispered. "Now." Without thinking, Emily sprinted toward the cliffside, her heart pounding in her chest. Alex followed closely behind, but the man was faster. He reached for her just as she neared the edge, but Alex tackled him, pushing him back. "Go!" Alex shouted. "I'll hold him off." "Go." Emily hesitated for only a second, but it was enough. She ran, not looking back. She had to escape. She had to survive. The final confrontation happened at the old lighthouse on the cliffs. Alex had led Emily there, determined to end the chase once and for all. The man who had been tormenting her appeared, his face twisted with rage and obsession. "You can't hide from me, Emily," he growled. "You belong to me." Emily stood her ground, her heart racing. But this time, she wasn't running. She had Alex by her side, and together, they would face the man who had haunted her for so long. With one final push, Alex fought back, knocking the man to the ground. The authorities arrived just in time, taking the man into custody. As the sun set behind the waves, Emily and Alex stood together, the weight of the past finally lifting from her shoulders. "I'm not running anymore," Emily whispered, her voice steady. "I'm ready to face the future." And for the first time in years, Emily felt a sense of peace. The whispers in the dark were finally silenced.